Every time one of those idiots from the State Department gets up and talks, any time one of those idiots from the Justice Department starts talking about this subject, they act like the border is secure. And our news media, gosh, are they absolutely clueless as a turd in a whirlwind? They're not going to tell you the truth. They're not going to go in and say, "Oh yeah, we need to report on this because people need to know that a dozen people were executed on the border." They're not saying you need to know that a border guard was killed. Oh, they had to let that one out, didn't they? This stuff is going on not because our Constitution has said, let's do it this way. This stuff is going on because our president is ruling this country by regulations. He's ruling this company by regulations. This isn't brain surgery, folks. Yeah, it's amazing to me that one guy can figure out how to be so conniving. But then I look up and I read today there is an article in the opinion section. I think it's of the New York Times, maybe, or the Wall Street Journal, and it's called "The Media Excuse Obama's Power Grab." What do you think this is about? The guy who wrote this thing is Cliff Kincaid. He's the director of the Ames Center for Investigative Journalism. He wrote this thing, "The Media Excuses Obama's Power Grab." What in the world would that be about? Well, he was writing about an article that a lady wrote in the Washington Post on Friday. And a quote from that article is, "The Obama administration is prepared to push its environmental agenda through regulation where it has failed on Capitol Hill." They're willing to push regulation that failed on Capitol Hill. Well, if you were to read this article, you would hear that I don't know what that is. If you read the article, you would find that nowhere in this article did this lady ever mention that this approach to environmentalism and that agenda was illegal or unconstitutional. Now, if we don't have the media being real media and reporting real media stories and putting all the facts out there, then these uneducated twerps that are out here that listen to the liberal media to get their education are going to believe that him regulating our government and governing by regulation is okay. Because nowhere in the whole article did she say that this was illegal. She just, by the way she told the story in the article, assumes that the Obama administration can do what it wants to do no matter what Congress or the law has to say. We'll make sure we get that. No matter what Congress or the law has to say, this thing assumes Obama can do what he wants to do. This causes me a problem. Where in the world is this kind of reporting? Where is it coming from? What makes it this matter of fact, I think is the way Cliff Kincaid put it, this matter of fact reporting about lawlessness by the federal government? Where does this come from? This is such a decline. It's not the death of journalism, but it's got to come from somewhere. Where is it coming from? Well, have you ever heard of the Center for American Progress? The Center for American Progress. If you have not heard of it, you need to hear of it. It is an organization, and I'm going to give you 3 guesses to figure out who funds this organization. It's either going to be Spooky Dude, A, B, the guy who has brought countries' monetary systems down, or C, George Soros. Okay, which is it, A, B, or C? Oh, guess what? Spooky Dude is George Soros, and George Soros is the guy that's brought countries' monetary systems down. Yeah, he funds the Center for American Progress. Now, what kind of progress do you think Spooky Dude does? It's a socialist progress. Please go to our website, conservativefreedomusa.com. You find a whole section on just George Soros. There's a very long set of videos, probably 10 or 20 of them. And those videos is a lecture he gave at a European college, and he lays out his whole socialist agenda. And you really need to read it if you've never, or hear it if you've never heard it. Well, Spooky Dude George Soros and his Center for American Progress had a report. And apparently the EPA has taken that report and used it as their Bible. Now, the name of that report is The Power of the President, Recommendations to Advance Progressive Change. Now, if you're not familiar with the fact that a progressive is not a good thing, then you need to understand that progressive is not a good thing. A progressive is just leaning further left into socialism, Marxism, radicalism. And they must have taken this report because this report basically tells the president that he has the power to govern this country in his hip pocket. He can do it by regulations. He can push whatever agenda he wants to. The problem that he's got coming up is that the House of Representatives is going to be controlled by the Republicans. And the Republicans have pretty much said that they are going to be absolutely, I hope, fatalistic in their approach to if it's not in the Constitution, it ain't going to happen. Representative Fred Upton, the incoming chairman of the House Energy and Commerce Committee, he said, we will not allow the administration to regulate what they have been unable to legislate. This Christmas surprise is nothing short of a backdoor attempt to implement their failed job-killing cap-and-trade scheme. Now, I may be crazy, and you may be listening to this saying, I've got to get to a different channel on Blog Talk Radio because this guy don't make any sense. But what I put together last week and was going to talk about, and the very first example that I had was Lisa Jackson and the Environmental Protection Agency. And then all of a sudden, we find in, today's the 27th, on the 26th, that we have a story, and we've got one of the representatives going to be the chairman of the House Energy and Commerce Committee, and he says, no, we're not going to let this happen. He says it's a backdoor attempt to implement a failed job-killing cap-and-trade scheme. Well, I guess the question now is, whose will is going to win on this deal? Now, to me, the whole tone of this whole deal just shrieks of lawlessness. It just shrieks of, I'm going to do whatever the hell I want to do and don't get in my way. And the tone of this whole thing has been set by President Obama himself. He's done it in just about everything he has gone to do. He pushed very hard last week. He and his little buddy, that little pipsqueak, Harry Reid, oh, they pushed and pushed and pushed, and they got Don't Ask, Don't Tell rescinded. Now, that's over the objections of his own military people. Now, Obama had some things to say about it. And let's see if, when you hear what he's saying about it, if it seems to you that possibly he's trying to regulate how this is going to happen rather than following the law. Now, he says that the admission of open homosexuals, and I'm not giving you I'm not doing a shtick here on whether homosexuality is right or wrong. We're talking about Obama regulating this country or governing this country by regulation. He said the mission of open homosexuals in the military must be done swiftly. There's only one problem with that. That's not what the law says. The law requires that the President, the Secretary of Defense, and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs certify that any changes must be consistent with the standard of military readiness, military effectiveness, unit cohesion, and recruiting and retention of the armed forces. Okay, let's say that one more time. The law requires that the President,